today we're talking about shorting pizza stocks. And no, this was not an idea that I came up with. This is something that I touched base on 3 months ago when the ex-CEO of Papa John's himself pointed out one major catalyst that would completely invert the entire pizza industry. And obviously heading into the pandemic with oil at record lows, everyone locked at home just ordering pizza, we knew it was going to be an incredible stock to buy, but now might be the time to start shorting them, and I'm going to show you why. So we're going to listen to the ex-CEO, figure out what his catalysts are, and then we're going to take a look at a bunch of these pizza stocks just to see what the heck's going on here, folks. So in the clarity of my transparency, just slap the like button into the ground. I spent a lot of hours on this one, but let's just
It's a good time to be selling pizza.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you got 310 million people trapped at home. You got cheese at an all-time low at $1 a pound. Fuel's low. I mean, this is as good as it gets if you're in the pizza business. I mean, you could sell shit on a stick.
And some are.
Those are your words, not mine.
So, Papa, you are not really in the pizza business that much anymore. You sold a lot of Papa John's stock to the tune of, what was it, like 100 million or something, by my basic
Something
math.
like that.
Damn.
Something like that.
And so,
yeah, I think, you know, right now things are really good. So I think it's maybe a good time to really look at selling some stock. The question is when the restraints lessen and it gets less restrictive, that curve for pizza is probably going to start going down. But what's inevitable short term is the price of cheese cannot be sustainable at $1 a pound. I think the dairy farmers, give or take the size of the farm, break even about $1.65, $1.70. We're at $1. If you look at the chart real quickly, you see the chart.
What's
that's the price of cheese.
Oh wow!
And what happens is it takes, and give you an idea, Papa John's uses about 2.5 million pounds a week. So $1 a pound is what, 2.5 million a week, which is $350,000 a day, a staggering amount of money. But it goes up as the farmers have more head of cattle, demand exceeds supply and the price goes up. The problem with cheese is milk is perishable within 3 days. So once that curve goes down, then the dairy cattle go to the slaughterhouse, become hamburger, and then you got a supply and demand. So this will not go back up slow. This will jump back up to $2.50, $3 a pound. So right now, the getting's good if you're in the pizza delivery business. But once the sales start trending down, which they will when they release the restrictions, and cheese soars to, pick your number, $2.50, $3 a pound, because historically this has never happened, then that's probably when you want to short Papa John's stock.
Well, welcome back, passive income investors alike. So yes, the CEO of Papa John's literally called this to a bloody T, which is something that I haven't heard any of these pizza companies talk about in their most recent quarterly earnings. I actually sat down and I listened to the 1-hour conference call for Papa John's. I skimmed through Domino's, and none of them are talking about the price of cheese. Presuming when you're buying into these companies, you want to know what their margins are on these kind of products, because they spend, according to Papa John's, well, the ex-CEO anyways, about 30% of their total revenue or their expense is going into that cheese, which again just skyrocketed to record highs that it hasn't seen literally in the last decade, in which cheese is currently sitting at $2.09 per pound, which is on the much higher level. So if we take a look, let's zoom into this chart, because we can obviously see heading into this pandemic, guys, just like he was showing in his little chart there, that coming into March when this pandemic hit, we might remember that with all the hotels shut down and all this horrible news, a lot of milk producers out there ended up just dumping their milk. That just slaughtered the cheese prices into the ground. For you city slickers out there, yes, you get cheese from milk. And I'm hoping that was apparent. I grew up on a farm, and sometimes what city people say about farm life blows my mind. But nonetheless, heading all the way through these lows, going right up until about June, we saw cheese just skyrocket to those new all-time highs where it hit about $2.60. So what does this say for the bottom line of these companies? Well, if this is their number one expense, it is going to be fascinating to see what these third quarterly results are going to look like. And let's take a few companies as an example, what ones I like, what ones I don't like. And to kick this off, let's talk about Domino's Pizza. This is probably one of the dominating pizza companies in the industry that has had a very robust performance over its lifetime with a 37 PE. It's got a 0.7% dividend yield. And right now, if we kind of just go take a look at their quarterly cash flows, we can see they've increased drastically here. Just taking a look at the total revenue from the first quarter, which was $873 million, which is just staggering for selling pizza, all the way into the second quarter where we can see they've done $920 million. And their cost of revenue has dropped drastically from the last quarter of 2019. I don't know how these cheese sales are going to project into their revenues and their cost of revenue, but whatever Domino's is doing, don't stop, because even in the past, the cheese price didn't really seem to reflect their bottom line, as we can even take a look at their quarterly earnings, which smashed Q1, even though cheese prices were historically high, and they smashed Q2, even though cheese prices were historically low. I'm going to put this one at the top tier of the list for companies in the pizza sector, which leads us into the second pizza stock, Pizza, of course, which I don't know what this company has been doing, considering it was founded in 1967. It's paying out a 6% dividend yield, a PE of 10. This one we could probably put in the value dump. And I want to know why it's in the value dump. I have not listened to their conference calls. I have not gone through their books. So if you can let me know in the comment section below why this company is tanking so bad over the last couple of years, and just taking a look at their total revenue, it's just crazy to think that they have lost revenue quarter over quarter to such a staggering level that at the end of 2019, they went from doing 9.5 million to today where they're only doing 7.5 million, which is a drop of revenue of almost 30%. I mean, that's terrifying. So maybe they just make junk pizza. This company has absolutely no growth going for it, and it's going to be really neat to see what these higher cheese prices end up doing to it. So I'd be very hesitant here considering the loss of revenue. Now, finally, we got two more that I want to talk about. And obviously, we got to take a look at Papa John's, which has absolutely exploded. And the ex-CEO had mentioned in other videos that they're spending something like $300,000 a day on cheese alone. And just taking a look at what this pandemic has done to this stock, well, it has exploded it, as year to date, the company is up roughly 58%. You want to talk about a good pandemic play? My goodness, you could have done well here, but let's take a look at their actual bottom line earnings just to see if it is justifiable that the stock is up 60%. As we can see, at the end of 2019, they were doing $417 million in total revenue, skipping 2 quarters later in which they're doing $460 million. But this is where we start seeing the correlation of those cheese prices, because going into the second quarter of this year is when cheese got completely deflated, because this started kicking off in March, in which they hit the bottoms in May. And if we take a look at that Papa John's income, their best revenue was in this second quarter. And I wonder if that is a direct correlation purely to the cost of cheese, which is something they just didn't mention in that earnings call that I listened to. So, I mean, if you're investing in companies like this is just, you have to do that deep down and dirty due diligence to figure this stuff out. So my eyes are going to be wide open for these third quarter earnings that are going to be coming up to see in the inflated cheese price market if it is going to severely hinder those bottom line earnings here, folks. And I will not be making that wildly bold bet on my own money, but if you wanted to short the stock, maybe take out a call option, so in case it does keep going up, you're protecting yourself against that. This is some crazy, fascinating stuff. And if you guys are enjoying this, I'd really appreciate it if you do slap this like. But let's take a look at one more that hits a little bit closer to home for me. And we're talking about Boston Pizza. This was a company that I got really familiar with because in my early days of being a full-time magician, Boston Pizza was one of the easiest places for me to get jobs at. I worked through personally more than 15 Boston Pizzas across Ontario. It was absolutely wild. I even got to meet the CEO at the time, Jim Treliving from the Dragon's Den, because I worked at one of the Boston Pizzas that had some of the highest sales. So he ended up coming in and checking the restaurant out, in which I actually got to sit down with the guy. Super cool stuff. But since those days, Boston Pizza has been absolutely in the toilet. I don't even think Jim Treliving is part of this company anymore, as he's kind of endeavoring into the MJ markets here in Canada. But let's just take a look and see why this company is getting absolutely slaughtered. You kind of have to disassociate them from being a complete pizza chain, because they're more or less like a sports bar. And when all the bars shut down, obviously people aren't showing up. They don't really do delivery to the same extent that I can imagine Domino's is doing. So that would be something that would make sense on why the company is tanking. And we can see over the last few, well, the annual reports, but let's break this down into quarterly. Very similar to Pizza, in which at the end of 2019, they were doing 11 million in sales on that last quarter, all the way 2 quarters later to watching that revenue drop by more than 50%. 5%. Oh my God, I feel bad for Boston Pizza. So if you're getting in the pizza game, you want to know what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and what the cost of these cheese products are, because man, oh man, pizza's not nearly as simple as you probably thought it was. Now, in the light of all of this, I would love to know what you guys think in that comment section below. Do you think you should be shorting Papa John's stock? What do you think of the ex-CEO's comments, guys? This is a really fun Sunday video. I wanted to make something a little bit different, a little bit more out of my comfort zone. So stay cool, stay awesome, and I look forward to chatting to you tomorrow.